want to talk today about this thing about your frequency and your antenna, and some of this I've sort of tapped into. But I mean, in the world at the moment, in my opinion, they're going to crash the economy, and all of this is orchestrated. They're doing it through a war, and there's an explanation for that. And then supply shortages is going to be an excuse to really control things down. So in my opinion, there is a reality to that, and you have to see it for what it is. But your mission, I think, this is how I see it, is that, so seeing the truth of this, I think you have to do. And from a spiritual perspective, you need to have maturity and just see it for what it is. Don't outsource it to any external entity, because that's what people want to do. Even in groups, they'll try to externalize their power to someone else. And I don't think it's about that. But the other aspect to this is that once people sort of see, wow, this is actually happening, they're fucked with this, this, and this, then there also needs to be a recognition of, we need to see this as it is, but not really get caught up in this fear and doom and gloom. Because once you're connected, a lot of magical opportunities can open up. I mean, even being in this jungle, I've met a lot of cool people just like randomly walking along here. Like if you're doing what you love and you are looking for truth, but you're not being caught up in the fear, then I think life can be really fun. And I think there's definitely an economic reset coming, but who's to say we can't have fun doing it? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so this is a very, very nuanced issue. It's kind of like, I see it sort of like when you tune the guitar string. It's like you tune it to a certain frequency, but it's like it's where you can see stuff, but you're making a decision not to be tied into it. You know, so, and it is an interesting thing because I do find humans, they always want to delegate. They want to hear something that suits their comfort level. So they want that often above the actual truth. So they want to tell a story. But once you start entering into the truth of things, you still have to manage your emotions. And your emotions create the antenna for your life. You know, so if you're caught up in fear, you will attract that. And so this is kind of the balance. I've seen things as they are, but you can make a decision that you're more powerful than that. You can make a decision that, fuck them, I know there's shenanigans happening, but I'm going to meditate, I'm going to connect in. I'm not going to buy into this. You know what I mean? So, you know, so I noticed the NPC kind of totally asleep. Whatever the government says, blah, 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 blah. But then there'll be sort of doomer groups. But that's kind of being controlled as well. So the avenue through all of this, I think, is if you're always looking for the truth, it will come to you. Like you'll see it, and there'll be a solution. And so, yeah, so I think let's go for meditation on that topic. So, okay, so this is about tuning your antenna really up to the path that's for you is most connected. It's most connected to your true path, to your spirit and to your mission, whatever that is. Everyone's is different. And being able to see things as it is and taking steps as you need to, but then like tuning into your own joy and direction about where you need to go. So take a deep breath in. And just let your body rest for a bit. And just be aware of like where in your life you give over to this fear. Where in your life does this fear sort of swamp you a little bit? And also, where in your life do you feel you need to create stories? As soon as you create stories, you're in the vibration of self-deceit. Doesn't matter if they're good stories or bad stories. You're in the vibration, it's not a true. Because when something is true, there is no need for a story. You know, if you think about who you love the most, or, you know, like where you feel deep love, you just do. You don't do it for a reason, you just do. You might like come up for a reason, but it's deeper than your reasons. And so when you know something to be true, you don't need to use your mind to sort of justify it. And so the stories that you create often will be, you've told yourself bullshit. So, good or bad. Because you don't need to when something's true and the mind is quiet. So if you do something and you notice your mind gets busy, that thing is probably out of aligned. Now sometimes you need to confront, and it does trigger fears and discomfort and mental chatter. But in general, if something is true, your mind will be quiet. Like, especially if it's an ongoing thing. You never have to justify the truth. And so noticing your life where you feel that you do give over your fear, or you do tell stories. And no judgment of that, just breathe and just let it go. And what is the you that you could step into more if you didn't create these stories? You know, the ideal version of you, the dream version, like doing what you really do. Like if you could let aside your stories, if you could let aside what you tell yourself. Leaving aside whether you think it's true or not, don't worry about whether you think it's true. Maybe it is true, who knows? But I'm just saying, just go with it. What would be the direction that you could do that would be more in this dream state? And just notice how you feel when you actually think of that. And notice the feelings you get from that. Because really this is something connected to your joy. And if you have stories around that, you don't need to give them up if you don't want to, but is it possible you can suspend them as something that may not be true? You know, in other words, just move ahead. Okay, there's a story there, saying I can't do this, this and this. But what if that's only a story? Like, what if that's not the truth? It's just playing with this idea that you don't have to believe it either way, but just being aware of, if the story wasn't there, what would be the feeling telling you to do? And again, notice how as you do this, things go quiet. That's because you've stepped out of the mind, you're into your spiritual self. And so when you partake in the world, yes, there's things happening and they need to be seen, but they don't need a story. And sometimes they need action, but that doesn't need emotional response. And don't use it as an excuse not to follow you. And that thing that is you, whatever you can do every day to stoke that, regardless of the puppet show that's playing out to distract you. And notice how just even thinking about that, there's more peace there. There's more connection. There's more oneness. That's your body speaking to you. So just let that go into your day, and anything that comes up, make a note of it, because the things that come up from this space are very likely to be the truth, particularly if you feel it from a peaceful place, from solidity, from something deep. And so you can just make a note of that, because when you do this and honestly open up, you're connected to a different level of understanding. It will show you things. So let that be with you, and have a good day.